Shalom, I'm Rabbi Stephen Sachs. I'll hate, I'll hate, I'll hate, I'll hate. Over the next 25 hours or so over this Yom Kippur, we will say the I'll hate confessional over and over and over again. Do you really think that God is going to forgive you simply because you said I'll hate and clapped away? Let me tell you a secret. He's not. So why do we say these I'll hates over and over and over again? Well, very simply, as we say these I'll hates, we should think about the sins we're confessing to and be thinking of how we're going to avoid committing these sins again in the future. The I'll hates are a spiritual self-assessment. If we use it as a ritual mantra, just clapping away, worthless. But if it helps us to think about how we're going to improve ourselves in the future, how we're going to avoid committing the same sins again in the future, then it is a very powerful tool. Let's look at some of these Al Hates. Al Chet shekatanu lefanecha ba'ones. For all the sins that we have sinned before you under duress. What's striking here? Under duress. Even for a sin you commit under duress, you still have to apologize. Maybe you should be judged more leniently because you are under duress, but you still are not exempt from doing teshuvah. You still have to repent. Who in the Torah do we see is judged, and judged harshly for committing a sin under duress? Moshe Rabbeinu. If you remember, the people come whining and complaining to him that they don't have water to drink in the wilderness. They've been driving Moshe crazy, whining, complaining about everything, constantly saying, "Why did you take us out of Egypt? You should have let us stay in Egypt. We would rather have died in Egypt than die in this desert." Moshe asked God. God says, "Speak to the rock, Moshe, and bring forth water." Moshe loses his cool, calls the people rebellious, and strikes the rock. Because he called the people rebellious and struck the rock, he was not allowed to enter the Holy Land. His punishment seems excessive. After being driven crazy by these people again and again, he finally lost his cool and struck the rock, called them rebellious. Big deal. Perhaps the reason Moshe is not allowed to enter the Holy Land, despite the fact he begged and pleaded, is because he never did teshuvah. He never apologized for his actions. He should have said to himself, "I was under duress. Yes, they were driving me crazy, but I owe the people an apology, and I owe God an apology." It made me think of a situation in which I acted under duress recently and wound up apologizing. Not long ago, my wife and I were coming, with our kids were coming back from New Jersey. She had a meeting at Christiana Hospital at 7 p.m. We were planning on going home. I was going to take the kids inside, put them to bed, and she was going to go back after the hospital. On the road back, Ann says to me, "Stephen, why don't we just go straight to the hospital, so this way I won't be late to the meeting. You take the kids over to Christiana Mall, get some ice cream, and then come pick me up." Well, you don't have to twist my arm. I love to get ice cream. The kids are happy to get ice cream. So drop Ann off at the hospital, take the kids to get ice cream at the mall. We're having a good time. Start walking back to the car, and my younger daughter, Gabriella, begins to have a meltdown. Screaming, yelling. She hadn't had her nap that day. She was tired. Finally, get the kids back to the car, start driving back to Christiana Hospital, pick up my wife. Somehow, don't ask me how, I got lost. Wind up on some dark road, can't figure out how to get back to the hospital. Phone rings, cell phone rings, pull over, take the call. It's Ann saying, Stephen, meeting's over. Where are you? I start screaming, saying, we should have gone home. Who cares if you had gotten to your meeting later today? I'm lost now. I don't know where I am. I have 2 cranky kids in the back of the car. She said, Stephen, calm down. Calm down. Take the GPS out of the glove compartment, plug it in, type in Christiana Hospital, and you'll be here in a few minutes. I said to myself, oh. Guess what? I was at the hospital a few minutes later. And I apologized to Anne for getting so upset. Yes, I could have defended my actions saying I was under duress, it was the end of a long day, I had done a lot of driving, Gabrielle had had a meltdown, it was dark, I couldn't figure out where I was going. The bottom line is, I owed Anne an apology. I got mad at her. I shouldn't have. It's not the first time I've done that. It's not the last time I will act poorly under duress. We all do when we're under duress at times. But when we make those mistakes, let's apologize for them and try to limit those instances in the future. Let's now look at another al-chet. Al-chet shechatanu lefenecha b'dibor peh. For all the sins we have sinned before you regarding harsh speech. Let me give you an example of harsh speech. And here it is. Silence. Giving somebody the silent treatment. When we think of harsh speech, we think of yelling and screaming. But ignoring somebody can be also very, very painful, a very severe form of harsh speech. Let me give you an example from the Talmud to demonstrate just how severe ignoring somebody can be. The rabbis ask, when did King David write Ashrei Psalm 145, praising God? As he fled Jerusalem because his son Avshalom was involved in a coup d'etat revolt to kill him. Why would David write a psalm praising God as he fled Jerusalem? If anything, you would expect him to write a psalm crying out to God, saying, God, what are you doing to me? Please help me. The rabbis explain that David realized that this was his punishment for his illicit affair with Bathsheba and the murder of her husband. David realized that God was orchestrating this punishment. And David was praising God for still taking an interest in his life. David was saying, I would rather have God punish me, even severely, as opposed to ignoring me and saying, David, I'm not interested in you anymore. You're on your own, my friend. I don't want anything else to do with you. David would rather have God orchestrate a coup led by his own son, as opposed to being ignored by God. That is how painful being ignored can be. So next time you're about to give somebody the silent treatment, stop. Think of that story. And speak to the person. Try to work out the problem you're having before you resort to the silent treatment. Let's look at another al-chet. Al-chet shechatanu lefenecha b'yetzer hara. For all the sins that we have sinned before you with our evil inclination. What is this evil inclination? Let me give you an example. After my first high holidays here, I was told by a lot of congregants that I gave a nice speech, a good talk. Then, Gerald August approached me. Gerald is one of our congregants, but he lives up in New York. He teaches public speaking at Yeshiva University. He said to me, Rabbi, give a nice talk, but let me help polish you up, brush you up. I teach public speaking. I could really bring your talks to the next level. My yetzer hara, my evil inclination said, who in the world is this Jerry August character telling me how to do my job? My congregants like my speeches, I work hard in them, I do a good job. But then, my yetzer tov, my good inclination, caught me. So wait a minute. Here was somebody, an expert in the field, offering to help you polish up your presentations. The best athletes in the world have coaches. Why shouldn't I have a coach? Let's look now at the next alchait. Alchait shekatanu lefenecha betesumet yad. For all the sins that we have sinned before you in the matter of extending a hand. When we think of extending a hand, we think of helping other people. But when you need help and others want to extend that hand, let them extend that hand. Take that hand. Let them help you. Earlier this summer, as many of you know, my wife was pregnant and on bed rest. Unfortunately, she miscarried. It's a very, very difficult 2 months for us or so. Very difficult summer for us, as a matter of fact, dealing with the emotional fallout after the miscarriage. But at first, while she was on bed rest, we didn't tell anyone she was pregnant, really just told people she wasn't feeling particularly well. After about a month, we decided to start telling people what was going on. Because we needed help. I was going crazy. My wife's on bed rest, I have 2 little kids, I have a full-time job. I was turning into a madman. Then we started to tell people the situation. And people couldn't wait to help. People started offering to babysit, to free me up so I could get back to work. People started offering to bring over food, because I'm not much of a cook. How much spaghetti could I eat? How much spaghetti could our kids eat and my wife eat? I think I still have food downstairs in the freezer. People brought over so much food. The bottom line is, you live in a warm, nice community. Let people help. Let them do the mitzvah of extending a hand. And there's one last alchait I want to mention. Alchait shekatanu lefenecha b'vidat znut. For all the sins we have sinned before you regarding insincere confession. As we say, these alchaits, let's not be guilty of confessing insincerely. Rather than rushing through the list, clapping away, stop. When we begin the alchaits, read each one carefully. And if you come to a specific alchait, specific sin in which you feel maybe you fell to last year, or a specific category in which you feel you really need some work, some improvement, stop. Come up in your mind with a little game plan as to how you will avoid committing that sin again in the future. And guess what? Don't worry if you haven't finished the entire list by the time we move on. Tomorrow morning, when we begin again, start where you left off and keep working down the list. And if you don't finish the list by the end of Yom Kippur, so what? The bottom line is, if you come up with one thing that you're going to do to keep yourself from avoid committing a sin which you've committed last year, then you've done a good job. Your teshuvah has been a success. And when we say at the end of Yom Kippur, Avinu Malkeinu, Chatmenu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim, our Father, our King, inscribe us in the book of good life. We will have given God good reason to inscribe us in the book of good life.